Uh, Housekeeping beforehand, we're meeting today. As I mentioned last week, we won't be meeting for next week and the week after. I'm attending a conference in Boston next week, a Society of Biblical Literature, and speaking in a synagogue over Shabbat, Boston area, and then I'm going on from there to Israel. I found out just really last week that I'm being honored at an event by the Israel AIDS Task Force, 40 years. And it's an important part of my life that I don't have a lot of connection with today, but a lot of important people who were very important to me at the time in the 90s and the early aughts when I was serving as their chaplain and then a member of the board of directors. So we won't be studying for the next 2 weeks, next week and the week after, and we'll resume then. Today we're ending, even though no, we're not ending a chapter, we're ending a particular part of this book of Proverbs, which is connected in particular to ancient Near Eastern wisdom. We won't be looking at any parallels today, but we'll see the last of the 30 maxims. You may remember that there was a parallel about 30 maxims, 30 words of advice, and this part of Proverbs is imitating those 30s, although not always the same 30s as we find in the Egyptian literature. Um, so we'll be doing mostly text today, and then we'll pause for one particular verse that I think is an important one for us to think about, especially in light of the last 2 years and what is happening today in Israel, um, or in general, geopolitics from an American point of view in light of this particular administration. Okay, so shall we begin? Eileen, do you want to begin with 24, 1 through 2?
Sure. Do not envy the wicked, do not desire to be with them, for their hearts talk violence and their lips speak mischief. A house is built by
No, no, we're
wisdom.
just we're doing we're just doing one box at a time. Each one is a separate maxim. So just that particular, we'll pause for a moment. No interpretation here, but because I wanted to finish this section. But any reactions to this? I think Les is going to say it's common sense, right?
It's going to say good advice.
Good advice, yeah. Good advice, but also duh,
Make
right?
a good fortune cookie.
Exactly. We talked about this in the beginning of making Proverbs fortune cookies, and I actually looked and I found there's a Christian company that makes not just Proverbs but other biblical verses as fortune cookies. So it's good to know. I thought it would be a real money maker for Armin Bar, a fundraiser. Um, so nothing surprising, I think. Um, Not entirely clear, what Fox suggests here is that because it is so obvious, maybe the second part of the maxim means because you too will begin to have a violent heart, and you too will begin to have mischievous lips, the rubbing off, the good neighbor, bad neighbor kind of a thing, or you're influenced by the society you live in. Um, and I think I like that. I like that because it is kind of a little bit too obvious the way it is without reading it that way. But yeah, in any case, hearts and speech, something we've seen quite a bit of, Sfatayim v'lev, and always interesting to know when it would be interesting to find out when the translators of Proverbs in the Jewish Publication Society team, when they decided to, in which cases they decided to translate lev as heart, and in which cases they translated it as mind, and perhaps other words that we've seen as well. Okay, Eileen, another 3 to 4.
A house is built by wisdom and is established by understanding. By knowledge are its rooms filled with all precious and beautiful things.
Okay,
Sweet.
sweet, right?
Sweet.
Not entirely surprising, right? Nothing grating. I shared this with a couple with whom I'm working when I was preparing yesterday. I'm working with a couple towards a wedding on December 20th. This is Eva, who some of you have met over Yom Kippur, Eva Kerner, who has made a generous contribution to Oramid Bar in memory of her mother, Slava Sternberg. And we were able to have a cello at Kol Nidre for that reason, and the Alicia Joe Rabin's concert, and the concert we did on Sunday as well. Which, by the way, I don't know if anybody was there. Don't think so. We did put up a recording of it. It was really nice. It was the kind of things the kind of things I'd like to do more of. I have done this kind of thing in the past where I'll pair up with a musician or musicians, especially who write their own music, and will comment from a Jewish perspective on their music. And if you have the patience to watch the hour that we sent out or to listen to it as you're driving, you'll hear some of my commentary. Not on every song, but I love the interaction with these two young people who stayed with us as well. Um, and we'll be doing something a little bit similar, less me talking, more the artist and the musician talking on um, December 21st at the Or Hamidbar Hanukkah gathering, which will be at 4 o'clock, because that sun goes down early. Then we'll light candles a little bit early at Gray.
Nice.
And there's a singer-songwriter artist in Joshua Tree who will be joining us, Brad Bird. And he likes to play with his art displayed behind him. So I've asked him to talk about light on Chag HaUrim, the holiday festival of lights, talk about light in his artwork and in his music as well.
Oh,
So I shared this 3 to 4 yesterday with the couple because we were working on the language of their ketubah. It's already set, but this is the kind of thing, this is the kind of verse that would be nice to have in an arch, above a ketubah, a marriage document. Um, I think it also connects to, I think I will use it when I talk about it, their chuppah, their wedding ceremony, the symbolism of a chuppah as well. But a house built by wisdom.
that's sweet.
It's the kind of thing that somebody probably has engraved in wood or something that you hang above your breakfast table. Those kinds of things. I think you find them like in Ohio and Nebraska in gift stores. Nobody's laughing. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Anything else I
Another
missed?
fundraising opportunity.
Another fun. Yeah, to make those things to hang over breakfast room tables, breakfast tables. Yeah. I think I've shared with you, those of you who study with me, the first two chapters of Genesis, and the creation of woman, two very different approaches, and one of them is, the rib story, and there's a horrible misogynistic rabbinic tradition in Bereshit Rabbah about why God created from the rib. And it's first ticks off that God put a lot of thought into from where he would create Chava, Eve, and not from the head because then she'd be too proud, and not from the hands because then she'd be kleptomaniac, and not from her legs because then she'd walk in the streets like a prostitute. I mean, it's a horrible misogynistic thing, and therefore God decided to create Eve from the rib, a place which is covered and modest, so that she would learn modesty. And as he's creating her, he says to her, modesty, modesty, woman, modesty, modesty. And yet, the Midrash continues, she went ahead and did all these things and gives verses, all these 10 different things or so, using biblical verses to prove that women, are still do those kinds of things, even though. And so, aside from it being misogynistic, it's a strange, it's not a very good logic. The logic is not very good because it's not just the ribs that are covered, it's probably any other bone. The pancreas is covered. There's a lot of things from which God could have created. And that's when I come in with a saying that was on a little wooden kind of plaque above the breakfast table of Reb Shmuel Lezer Stern, who was my Hasidic Rebbe, not Rebbe as in Hasidic Rebbe, but he was my Rebbe in high school, that is my teacher, and he was Hasidic, which was rare when I was growing up in LA. And it said, God created woman not from the foot, so that she wouldn't be trampled upon, something like that. Not so man would not feel above her, not from the head, so she would not feel above man, but from the rib, a place close to man's heart. And everybody goes, how nice. Still chauvinistic, a little, not really misogynistic, but anyway, yes, we could have a line of breakfast room plaques. Yes, less.
I was thinking when I was reading this that right now, you look at it, you think house, family, people live where people live, but the word bayit is used in lots of different forms. Beit Knesset, Beit Midrash, all those things. Is it is this intended? I mean, I was just commenting or thinking at how it's not always used as a family home.
Right. So yeah, in this case, it's home. I think that's pretty obvious, I think. And by it can be house or home structure. It can be something, a physical structure, as in Beit Knesset, right? The place where people come together, synagogues, or Beit Cholim, a hospital, but also, Beit Yaakov. Beit Yaakov is parallel to the house of Jacob, is the people of Israel.
Is
Um,
bayit different than bait in terms of Hebrew
yeah,
understanding?
bait is the word when it stands alone. Bait is when it's in the construct form. When another word, the genitivus, that when another word is attached. Just like uh, Abba, maybe that's not a great example, but
Shalom bayit.
well, by the way, there's a good Shalom Bait is a good one because it's not really Shalom Bait, it's Shlom Bait. So the Shalom becomes Shlom when it's in a construct form. So that I mean, I'm not I don't teach language, so I'm not good. I can't explain it. I can give you tons of examples, but yeah. Like Chanukah is dedication and the name of the holiday, but Chanukat Habayit, the taf, because it's feminine, the taf is added at the end. That's in construct form, which is connected to the genitive, to the possessive. Okay, or chokhmah. We're dealing with a lot of chokhmah. Chokhmah is wisdom. Chokhmat halev, the wisdom of the heart, the construct. Chokhmat halev. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else on this section? Okay, Manny, want to read 5 to 6 for us? Just need you to unmute, please.
Uh, Sorry. A wise man is strength. A knowledgeable man exerts power. For by stratagems you wage war, and victory comes with much planning.
What's the first thing that comes to mind? People, especially that watch a lot of TV and movies. I can't remember the name. The Chinese book of strategy that it's always quoted in movies and books and
Lao
anybody.
Tzu. Lao
Yeah,
Tzu.
that's what that's the. Oh, this is our own Jewish Lao Tzu, right? Our own Israelite Lao Tzu. Or it also sounds a little bit like Confucius, right? Um, so what do we learn from this?
And it's not power, it's not strength, muscles that wins wars and is real power. It's wisdom and strategy.
Yeah, and planning. Yeah, yeah. The verse "a wise man in strength" is problematic in the Hebrew. Gvar chacham ba'oz. Fox translates instead, "Stronger is a wise man than the strong." Uh,
Uh,
which I think I don't know that he has to amend the text, but you assume that yeah, you assume there's a part of the sentence that's not there. It's a little bit strange, but do get the point, especially since the second one. Tachbulot is a word I like. I think it has to do with the root of chevel, which is rope. Could be wrong, but it's we use it a lot. Tachbulot. I didn't know the word, and I had to look it up after class. When I moved to Israel when I was 18, I was in yeshiva for 5 years, yeshiva in the army, and so there were other Americans that I spoke with a lot my year. I already knew I could already speak Hebrew from spending 10th grade in Israel, but there were certain words that I would have never used in the yeshiva. It wasn't part of Talmud study or halacha, or shopping, things that perhaps we did. And then I got to the army, and there was a whole new set of vocabulary that I had to learn. And and then I got to the university when I was 25, and there's another set of, you know, and I remember going to a class. The first class I went to by mistake. I signed up for a class which I thought was Introduction to Hebrew. Excuse me, Introduction to Literature. I figured I never had a Bachelor of Arts education. I should get a, and I didn't read it right. It was Mavo Siporet, not Sifrut. I just jumped over a vav at the end. Siporet is narrative. So I went to the class the first day, not knowing what she was talking about, Siporet. And I had, of course, I was too embarrassed to ask anybody. And there were only about 20 of us in this classroom. And so I had to look it up. And she kept using the word tachbulot, tachbulot sifrutiot. I had no idea what she was talking about. Well, tachbulot sifrutiot are literary devices. And Siporet is narrative. Um, Tachbulot are also manipulations. People might use it in modern Hebrew as manipulations. Um, uh, here, obviously, the biblical word, and I didn't look it up to see if it appears in other places as well, but it's not that common as stratagems. Okay, anything else? Okay, Manny, another one, verse 7.
Wisdom is too lofty for an ignoramus. He does not open his mouth in the gate.
Okay, let's start from the last word. What does in the gate mean here? In biblical literature, what happens in the gate?
Judgment.
Exactly. Yeah. Think of Ruth and Boaz, right? That happens in the gate. I'm sure there are some other cases as well, but that seems to be well known from ancient Near East. So let's if we start from the end, he can't open up his mouth when he's sitting around the table with, you know, I think if Sasha was here, I think she would allow me to. Oh, I don't know. Maybe Sasha. No, she's not listening. She's not on. She's not with me now. Anyway. I remember Sasha being uncomfortable when I would have professors from the university over who would love her, of course, right, and love everything she had to say, but she felt that it was, she couldn't say anything. She's very intimidated by being around Yair Zakovich and Avigdor Shenan, for instance, or other graduate students. She had no reason to be, and yet she was. And so this idea that when you're in the midst of, when you're in a courtroom, when you're in other important places, the person who's not well educated will feel very intimidated. Um, and so the line wisdom is too lofty for an ignoramus, we kind of get. The greater problem is, do you see the Hebrew, Rabbi Malka? Ra'amot le'evil chochmot. And Ra'amot
Mhm.
is not a word. Ra'im, there is an animal
Right,
called a ra'im, like this
right.
mythological ox. It's not that. So most of the commentators go with Ra'amot with the aleph is added, is a spelling thing that changed at some point in late Hebrew, biblical Hebrew. In other words, the word should be Ramot, Resh Mem
Remote,
Tav,
right.
and that means lofty, right?
Mhm.
Mamot. Um, uh, Professor Avi Horvitz, with whom I worked, the only other academic exposure I had to Mishle, or the only exposure to Mishle, to Proverbs when I was at Hebrew University, he wrote that he thinks that this whole section was alphabetic, was what do you call it?
Uh,
Acro- uh,
Acrostic.
acrostic. He claimed it was acrostic, at least for the first, but he had to amend all sorts of words to make it acrostic. And so you might see at the beginning, for those that read the Hebrew, the beginning of the first three paragraphs, Aleph, Bet, Gimel. And so he had here damot, or excuse me, he had here domot. He read domot. It should be from the word, and not domot, domut, from
Oh,
dom, to be quiet, stuck. So we domut vil chochmot, that wise things, wisdom does not speak to the
Mm.
ignorant person. It's too sophisticated. That would make sense, but it means,
Mhm.
and it's not a big leap to change Resh to a Dalet, but
Yeah.
what does he do with the Aleph as well? So,
And what happened to hay?
where would you expect a
You
hay?
would said dollar and then
Oh, I see. Yeah,
hay right above. What
I
happened to the
only saw.
rest?
Yeah, I didn't see the article itself. I saw the
Oh,
references in Fox's critique. Of Fox has a he writes the text itself is in bold, and in the same size font as his commentary, but then textual commentaries are in this little tiny font, about half the size, which is under it, and I could see that. But at some point, with all the abbreviations and the different things, I didn't, and I didn't see the article itself. He didn't really go on. He just critiqued Horowitz's desire to see the whole thing as acrostic. Yeah,
mm.
it does, maybe he just and maybe he just wanted it to be Aleph Bet Gimel Dalet. I don't know. Anyway, and perhaps it's intentional. Yeah, good chance it's intentional. The first three are Aleph Bet Gimel, just like the 31st chapter, which we haven't done. We did in a different group. Eshet Chayil is acrostic,
Right.
right? Okay. Anything else on this? Oh yes, there's one other stream of interpretation that one finds in it's in Rashi, which leads me to believe it's in rabbinic literature, is that Ra'amot is a precious stone, and that's because there's another. Maybe it's in Job or someplace as well. And from that context, you could understand it's a precious stone, and that makes sense here, right? Wisdom is a precious stone for the ignorant, something they can't attain. But I don't think that the modern commentaries accept that. Okay, all right then, Rabbi Malka, 8 to 9.
One who lays plans to do harm is called a schemer. The schemes of folly are sin, and a scoffer is an abomination to all.
Not, each one of these are maxims. That's even seven is a maxim unto itself. In order to get to that number 30. Um, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say on this. It's once again good advice, but it seems kind of obvious. It's maybe the flip side of 5 to 6.
Mm.
Go ahead and read another one.
If you showed yourself slack in time of trouble, your strength will be constrained.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Again, this is the nature of maxims to be these kind of these words of wisdom, wise words. Um, the Hebrew, for those that can read, your strength will be constrained. Tsar kochacha. We would write it today without the hey, kochacha, but in biblical writing, it's often with a hey, that kind of that hey at the end, kochacha. Sound familiar from a different phrase? But you probably know it in its Yiddish. In its Yiddish form is Yasher. You've heard people say Yasher before, which
Yeah.
became contracted in recent years to Shkoyach, SHK. I see that in emails and stuff from usually younger rabbis. Shkoyach. And maybe in the Orthodox world they write it that way. In Yiddish it's Yasher Koyach. It's in Hebrew it comes from the Hebrew Yishar Kochacha or Yishar Kochech or Yishar Kochachem. And Yishar has to do with um, straight and strong. So the opposite of Tsar Kochacha is Yishar Kochacha. And I didn't look, he didn't have anything on it. I didn't look to see if Yishar Kocha is biblical. I don't think it is, but something to look up. Okay.
What does it mean slack in time of trouble? I'm not sure I get that.
Okay, so the Hebrew is biyom tzara, on the day of trouble or time of trouble, can mean either one. And Rafui, Resh Pei, I guess it's Rafi, Resh Pei Yud is probably the root. Um, is the opposite of tight, to be slack. I think it's that you don't rise to the occasion. You don't tighten you don't gird your loin, right? you don't tighten yourself. You just you let it go,
You
and then
don't take it seriously, that kind of.
yeah, or you don't put in the effort. Maybe I think it would be effort. I would guess that it's effort.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes from um, because the second part is kochacha, your strength. Maybe I kind of think as I think for some reason when I read it, I thought of muscles. You know, when you're about to do something with strong, you're tightening your muscles. Is that the word? When you're doing this, when I'm
Tense,
doing
tense.
you tense your muscles. So the opposite of tense is you don't do anything. You just let it go, right? You're not, figuratively speaking. Okay, Les, you want to do 11, 12?
Sure. Um, Save those being taken away to death, those condemned to slaughter. If you say we knew nothing of it, surely the one who fathoms hearts will discern the truth. The one who watches over your life will know it, and God will pay each person as they deserve. So they don't mean save as in prevent them from being taken away. They mean don't don't excuse them or don't.
I think it's save, and there could be two contexts for this. One could be people that seems to be Fox is people who've been convicted and are being taken to their death. Um, that's one way of looking at it, and yet you say, don't pretend it's not happening. Yeah, look at I'm biased because I read this in the context of today, and I'm part of an organization that opposes the death penalty. That's what got me. I was happy to serve, but that's what got me out of jury duty. The last time I was called, or two times ago, I made it as far as sitting actually in the jury box at the final selection. But I made it clear to them, and it was a murder trial. I made it clear that I'm actively opposing the death sentence. Um, to me, that's what this sounds of. Don't pretend that people are not being killed in different places in the world, not just a death sentence. I would say, but in Sudan, for instance, that's coming up now a lot, right? Why are people not protesting Sudan, the deaths? Yes, Klaus.
The minute I read this verse, it reminded me of the Holocaust because this is very applicable to people who stood by and did nothing, and those of us who were killed hope that those people will be rewarded by God in some way that we were.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only, of course, American politicians that may have known that knew or military that could have done something, but also American Jews, American Jewish community. There was a
Yeah.
certain knowledge of things going on. So that's why I think less that it's actually people who are about to be put to death and saving, keeping it from happen. But you think perhaps it's remember? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm not. I'm trying to interpret the phrase "we knew nothing of it." We knew nothing about their being put to death, or we knew nothing about the crime they're being accused of. I'm trying to understand that third sentence.
We knew nothing about their being led to slaughter, I thought it meant.
Okay, and then the next line, Klaus, surely the one who fathoms hearts will discern.
Surely the one who fathoms hearts will discern that. Uh,
Right,
um,
as you said, that they'll get theirs. They'll be punished, and those horrible people will find their own death.
Mm.
It's hard to know who's being referred to as they and
Yeah.
those and the ones.
uh,
Mm.
Does the Hebrew help you at all?
No, I mean, to me, I would say like this: Hatzel likuchim lemavet, right?
Mhm.
Save those who are threatened by death. Save them from death. Umatim lehereg al tachshoch, and as those who are about to be or are poised to be killed, don't eh, don't not tachsoch, don't save yourself from doing it. Don't prevent yourself from doing it. Don't keep yourself from doing it. In other words, get involved in actively saving them. Third line, Ki tomar hein lo yadanu ze, because if you say we didn't know about this, right? Halo
Mhm.
tochen libo tu yavin. Um, that's not exactly true because that's my added there because God is implied here, discerns all which is in the heart, and God notzer nafshecha hu yeda,
Mhm.
and God who protects your soul, your life, He will
Mhm.
know. God will know. Veshiv la'adam kifo, and he'll he'll uh, he'll
I
give him.
think
He'll pay, yeah, or he'll return. He'll pay back everybody as they performed.
I
So
think kafalo, according to their deeds or according to their works, rather than as they deserve. I guess it's the same thing. The last word, kafalo,
Kifalo, as his deeds,
as
as it,
his deeds, as his works. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, I see. As so the deserves comes from Veheshiv, I think.
And kafalo, isn't that like pa'al? Isn't that deeds, works too?
Yeah, yes, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. So those are the he. I think the he is God here, and the them. There's two thems. There's the thems. There's you who is addressing, not the them. The you in plural, the people themselves, and then the them who are threatened by death. He goes into quite a long conversation here about, and there's some parallels in other ancient Near Eastern literature that have to do with um, that it's not it all has to do with a trial. It has to do with somebody who's being put to death by trial. It's hard for me not to see it as Klaus does in the past, but also in the present, the same kind of, don't pretend you don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
It just made me think about, I don't know where it's found in Talmud, but that a Sanhedrin that condemns anybody to death is a bloodthirsty Sanhedrin. Anybody to death in what, 70 years is a
Something
bloodthirsty
like that, whatever,
Sanhedrin?
one, yeah, more once or 40 years, whatever it is, yeah.
Here. And
Yeah.
then,
So that's a little, so the difference is, Malka, is that in rabbinic literature, the Sanhedrin didn't really have the power to put anybody to death. So it was all hypothetical. It was all kind of a hypothetical conversation about the death penalty. And rabbinic literature does everything in its power to make sure that the conditions put upon a death sentence are so constricting that it could never really happen, like the son who
right,
eats and drinks the.
right.
Um, Now, on the other hand, during this time, there's royal courts. I mean, the Mishle is being written around the royal court or recent memories, and people were put to death.
Mm,
Was actual put to death. So there, yeah, so yeah, so again, I don't know. It's like, would you say, what if somebody deserves death in those days, right? In that
mhm,
context, should you not? Should you just let it? Shouldn't you just let it happen? So that's why I tend to think it's
right,
unjust death.
right.
Stand by, yeah, and do al tamod al dam re'echa. I mean, that's really the verse that comes to mind from Leviticus, right? Don't stand upon the blood of your neighbor, or don't
Leviticus,
don't be responsible
right.
because you didn't say anything, right? All the different 60s,
So that makes
60s.
me think if a Sanhedrin didn't have power to condemn anybody, this is a little bit off the topic, to condemn anybody to death. So they could not have condemned Jesus to death. I know oftentimes that's said, but
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's why they had to go to Pontius Pilate,
right,
right? He had to be involved in this because they didn't have the
right.
power. But they had power, they had other powers, and they could, it's kind of like maybe it was more like we recommended death sentence,
Mm.
but they couldn't actually do it. Okay. All right. Next one. Another one.
My son, eat honey, for it is good. Let its sweet drops be on your palate. Know such is wisdom for your soul. If you attain it, there is a future. Your hope will not be cut off.
Okay. What do we get out of this?
I sort of don't interpret the eat honey as liberal, as literal. Um, I think it could refer to other good deeds that provide wisdom for your soul. I thought the honey is just a stand-in for good things.
Right, right. Although one could imagine a parent saying to a child, there's honey on their plate, and then say, but it's not about the honey, it's about the wisdom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I've been in touch with a close friend of mine from yeshiva, my first study partner in yeshiva. So I guess we've known each other since 1976. He's a year younger. My first Israeli study partner. And he's a tax lawyer now. We've been in touch now about the estate, especially for my brother, Israeli tax lawyer. And I told him, we were writing back and forth about something today, and I said, I'm going to mention your mother of blessed memory at the class today on Proverbs. One of the first homes that invited me, Menchi, his name is Chaim, we used to call him Menchi. Menchi invited me over for Shabbat to his parents' house. They lived in Ramat Gan. His father was the Inspector General of Income Tax, whatever the title, Netziv Mas הכנסה, was the top income tax person. And so they were relatively well-to-do. They had two cars. Nobody else did I know at that time. They had two cars. They had two cars. And we're sitting around the Shabbat table, and Geula Man of blessed memory, she says to me, they always call me David. David, ktsat uga? At the end of the meal, would you like a little bit of cake, David? And I said, no, no. She says, well, why not? I said, I'm not hungry. She says, David, uga lo ochlim ki re'evim. Uga ochlim ki zetaim. Cake, she said, David, cake, you don't eat because you're hungry. You eat cake because it tastes good.
Mm.
So that was my something. And I don't remember, honestly, don't remember if I didn't want to have any or I was just trying to be polite or whatever it was. But of Gu'ulaman of blessed Zichronah Livracha, blessed memory.
Hence the high incidence of diabetes among Jews.
Yes. Yeah, I
What,
guess.
what did you say at the end, Rabbi? That you don't eat cake because you
Oh, then I don't remember. Oh, what did Geula say?
I couldn't listen well what you said.
Well, I said no to the cake because I said I'm not hungry, and she said we don't eat cake because we're hungry. One eats cake because it tastes good.
Oh, right. I didn't hear the taste good. Okay, okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, but it's good to know that you're taking notes. I appreciate that.
Yes,
Oh, actually, is that the AI speaking?
it is not.
No, because the AI could probably imitate your voice. It could be AI. We think it's Magdalena, but still the AI can do that as well.
It is Madalena speaking.
Okay. Anything else on this section? So I think what I want to say, Klaus, is what I'm thinking here is it's not just any wisdom. It feels here to be, um, no, such as wisdom for your soul, in Hebrew, nafshecha. For some reason, I thought of emotional intelligence here. Not, yeah. I think when we see, and maybe that's a distinction that we make that the biblical author was not making between soul and mind here. Emotional intelligence, perhaps. Okay. Anything else on this section? Okay, Megan, 15 sec 16.
Me?
Megan?
Wicked ones, do not lurk by the home of the righteous. Do no violence to their dwellings. 7 times a righteous person falls and gets up, while the wicked are tripped by one misfortune.
Connected once again to the who are your neighbors, I think.
I just
Opposed
wonder
to
why they said one misfortune. It looks like the wicked are tripped by evil.
Shem Ikashlu Bara'ah.
Yeah.
Are they tripped by evil or are they tripped by God? Or are they tripped
What's
because evil?
Bara'ah?
Yeah. Ra'ah here is misfortune.
Misfortune, not
Yeah.
evil.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Ra.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, yeah. What would be an example of Ra's misfortune? Yeah, Shchivra is at least it's in Talmud is somebody who's in a bad physical state.
Mm,
Bad as in not wicked, but bad as in misfortune. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Uchashbara. Somebody
mm,
feels bad is not evil. Yeah.
right.
Um, so why seven? Typological number, meaning that I there's no magic. It's not mystical at this point, but we had that section of 3 and 4, 6 and 7. We had probably a year ago, it feels like now. So I think that's, and Shiva time sevenfold, which means a lot, a huge amount, right? He'll keep getting because, if you're doing the right thing, you'll find the strength to maintain whatever. But um, yeah. So in other words, a crime does not pay. Crime does not pay. Okay. And Megan, here's one that I'm always looking out for things that you can use as a therapist here. Here's a good one.
The next one.
Yeah, 17 to 18.
Okay. If your enemies fall, do not exult. If they trip, let your heart not rejoice, lest God see it and be displeased and avert God's wrath from them. Huh. Avert God's wrath from them onto you.
Yeah, you'll get it. In other
You'll
words,
get it back.
yes, yeah. So not if you're exulting at your enemy's failure, what do we call that?
Revenge.
German word?
Freud.
Right. Yeah. Schadenfreude.
And this is all about, with Pharaoh and the Red Sea and the Egyptians.
Right.
So that it's interesting. I didn't immediately find. I know there's a midrash that connects this
Mhm.
to that, but that's not in the focus of rabbinic commentary on this. It's interesting that doesn't come up right away, but there
Mhm.
is that tradition, and we all know it. I think from the Haggadah, right? That's why
Mhm.
we know the angels were not to sing. Um, Although that's in other words, but that's not what it's that famous midrash doesn't have this verse. I expected it to be there as well. It's like,
Mhm.
there's these stories in the Torah that we think is there, and then we find out it's in the Midrash. Well, it turns out there's things in the Midrash that we find out were in the commentary of a Haggadah, which was written in 1957, or whatever. Yeah. And this could be,
In Sherrod Hayam, we rejoice.
we do, we of course we do, and it's nature, but this is Musar literature, right? This is ethical improvement, self-improvement. Yeah. We do, of course, but we really shouldn't. And so that's back to, the celebrating on the roofs when missiles were coming over, Scud, the ammunition, the verbal ammunition used towards Palestinians during the Gulf War with Saddam Hussein. This kind of because when you're helpless, that's what you do, or after October 7th, and this absolute lack of understanding of the Jewish world the Jewish world's lack of understanding of some of the non, especially the pro-Palestinian world, how could anybody be happy about October 7th? Yet there were plenty of Israelis and Jews that were very happy with much of what went on during the 2 years. Maybe not after May or so. Tides changed in May, I think, around May, June. But before that, maybe people said, well, we excuse it, we can tolerate it, but there are plenty of people in Israel and out of Israel, Jews, who are happy at the destruction, not just of Hamas. Yeah, so of Hamas we all kind of understand, but we should, according to this, I would say, is we should understand that the enemy needs to be defeated, but we don't need to be happy, we don't need to be joyful, we shouldn't raise a l'chaim. And because so, what does it mean, especially from a therapist point of view, Megan? Where I'm guessing you don't bring God into the picture all that often, perhaps you do, but I think this is a way of saying because once you start to think like that and start to do like that, then you're mushchad. You become you're corrupt. You corrupt your soul in such a way, and you start to do those things, and that's what's going to happen. Those things will be done to you as well. And this back and forth of being gleeful. I mean, media with whether it's uh, Epstein files or whether it's the government shutdown or whatever it is, this gleefulness on both sides of whoever, whoever gets into trouble, whoever fails at their job.
I think this one is hard to do. It sounds like it makes sense, but it's hard not to, if you're really mad at somebody and you see something, you go, oh, it's hard to follow this. That old saying, one finger pointing out and three fingers pointing back at you. It's hard not to project in all of that stuff. So
Right. And I guess the challenge is taking what we see as poetic justice, for instance,
yeah, yeah,
to keep it as okay, poetic justice, but now let, let me look at myself.
exactly.
Yeah,
Or,
the three
oh,
fingers.
let's be careful about what we're what we're saying about that. Yeah.
Okay. Charles, you want to read for us from the Talmud of Masechet Brachot, from the Tractate of
Sure.
Brachot?
Let's see. I'm live. Okay. One who is sick should not reveal it on the first day of his illness, so that his luck should not suffer. His luck should not suffer. From there on, he may reveal it.
When it says luck shall not suffer, it's like the old grandmothers would say, Ayin hara, kanai nahora, right? It's
Yeah.
the evil eye. Don't or in Hebrew, lo liftoch pe satan. Don't allow Satan to open his mouth, right? The superstitious kind of way. That to me, that's what seems what it is here. Go ahead.
Like that which Rava does when he falls ill. On the first day, he does not reveal it. From there on, he says to his servant, go out and announce Rava is sick. Those who love me will pray that God will have mercy on me, and those who hate me will rejoice over my distress. And it is written, rejoice not when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord sees it and displeases him, and it displeases him, and he turns away his wrath from him. The joy of my enemy over my distress will also assist my healing.
A rather clever twist of using a voice. It's I would say it's Rava, who's one of the more famous, more commonly mentioned rabbis in the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud. It's his kind of win-win situation. Right.
There's a political saying I first heard from Mayor Daley that says, be gracious in victory and humble in defeat.
Yeah.
Don't be gracious when you beat someone.
Right. 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 Okay. So why don't you read the second passage
By
as
the way,
well?
this is also really good medical advice is don't call your doctor on the first day, wait till the second day.
Yeah. Good.
Take an aspirin and call me the next day.
All right. Go ahead.
Let's see, 1920.
Yeah. We're at Babylonian Talmud Megillah 16a. The second from.
Yes, I'm sorry. Right. After Haman trimmed his hair, Haman dressed Mordecai in the royal garments and said to him, mount the horse and ride. Mordecai said to him, I am unable, as my strength has waned from the days of fasting that I observed. Haman then stooped down before him, and Mordecai ascended on him. As he was ascending the horse, Mordecai gave Haman a kick. Haman said to him, it is not written for you, do not rejoice when your enemy fails. Mordecai said, falls, yes, excuse me. Mordecai said to him, this statement applies only to Jews, but not regard to you, as it is written, and you shall tread upon their high places.
Yeah, so we're not proud of many of the things that are in the Talmud. This would be one of them. But you understand the literal translation of being pol oivecha, right? When your enemy falls or stoops, right? So he uses them as a step stool. He gets in and gives him a kick on the way, which of course, in anything about Haman, we're absolutely rejoiced. The whole story of Esther, the whole practice of Purim is rejoice at the fall of your enemies.
Yes.
I mean, you've most of you have seen my presentation on Bill Gross's illuminated manuscripts of Esther. That picture of the 10 sons of Haman graces. It's the most common illustration in all the Megillot, and the various ingenious ways the illustrators, the artists found to how do you put 10 people, 10 men hanging from a tree slash hanger, whatever you call the thing where you hang from, gallows, whatever it is. So yeah, and then this because when you're this goes back to the pride and the joy of some pro-Palestinians over October 7th, when you have been stepped on and hit down for so long, as Jews were in so many places, then that this advice from Mishle just becomes irrelevant. Of course, it's good advice. Of course, we want to do it, but really, that's what you're coming to tell us? We've been kicked around for so long, and we're not supposed to be happy that finally there's some justice. Um, yeah, but I agree. This is not something I want to inculcate in others as a rabbi. It's not something I want to do myself. I don't want to be the one who cheers. I don't even want to be the one who cheers when the other team fumbles the ball, right? Even that's my uneasiness with sports. Yes, I did watch the World Series. What am I going to do? My father was a Dodger fan. I watched, but I feel bad. I see the shots, the cameras, the other guy. I feel horrible for these guys. But somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. Like I say to myself, why would you do this? Why would you intentionally put yourself in a situation where you're gonna lose? If not today, then tomorrow or the next day. You can't always win. And you're also, by winning, you're forcing somebody else to lose. This whole thing of competitive sports seems to be so stupid. And so, whether it's a war or whether it's looking back,
Isn't that the same thing in all of life, though? I mean, if you get a job, someone else doesn't get the job. I mean,
yes,
if you
but
win the lottery, somebody else doesn't win the lottery. I mean,
okay, we could probably divide those into different categories, and some of them,
mhm,
and some we're looking for win-win situations, right?
right,
In countries where the unemployment rate is lower because perhaps people are making less and doing varied jobs, perhaps they're taking more vacations, like Sweden, whatever. Wherever it is, then there are ways to create more and more of a win-win approach. But the win-win approach, Malka, is relatively new. I haven't looked to see when did somebody start using that term win-win, but I can remember the first visit to Taizé, and they didn't know who I was yet, but one of them was talking to me. They said, "Well, would you sit?" Maybe it was the second one. Anyway, I sat with the younger brothers. There were six or seven of them, and I studied with them Psalm 126, which is about coming back from the
from
exile of Babylon,
Babylon.
right?
Mhm.
And my reflections, and this was 2001. I'm pretty sure it was 2001. I'm sure it was before 9/11, so it was August 2001. And I said to them that this idea of win-win when it comes to Israel returning from the exile, it, that's not a new. We need to work for a win-win situation. So it's not just us against the Palestinians. So they were living there. We were living there before. They kicked us out. We kicked them out. That kind of a thing. It's got to be a situation which works for everybody. That's been my attitude since the 90s. Certainly, this is early, maybe since the 80s even. And I can remember specifically saying to them, I said, but win-win doesn't exist in biblical culture.
Mhm.
Biblical world, there's winners and there's losers.
Right.
But what we are commanded to do, and I'm pretty sure I brought this verse as well, is that when we do win, we win with grace. Right? Yeah. But yes, Malka, that could we find that a lot in the work that we do, the social justice work we do, that we
Mhm.
kind of help solve one problem, but somebody else is a loser. Here in Section 14, the reparations work,
Right.
been involved in the African American
Mhm.
and somewhat, to a lesser degree, the Hispanic community and some Filipino families as well. were absolutely treated unjustly. They were the losers, but the winners here were the tribe. The tribe was able to develop their land, and the tribe, of course, they were losers for hundreds of years.
Right.
So now there's a way to have everybody. We figured them out. We're working on that kind of stuff. But that's a good point, Malka, especially since there are so many people who would see themselves not as losers the way some people use that language, but those who are not winning in anything. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Let's go back to you. Go back to Eileen, 1920.
Sure. Do not be vexed by evildoers. Do not be incensed by the wicked, for there is no future for an evildoer. The lamp of the wicked goes out.
Ner Rishaim Yid'ach. Yeah, I've never used that verse. I've often talked about light, especially Hanukkah time or Advent in churches, or
Mm.
um, but this is the opposite. This is the flip side of Ner L'Ragli Dvarecha in Psalms. Your words are a lamp to my feet. That's how I know which way to walk.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, okay, anything on this? Okay, let's finish up. Go ahead. The next one, Eileen.
Fear God, my son, and the king, and do not mix with dissenters, for disaster comes from them suddenly. The doom both decree, who can foreknow?
Okay. Just for the Hebrew readers, speakers here, there's one interesting word here that's just very rare, but appears here and in one other place, I think feed, which I wasn't familiar with, which means
Mhm.
doom. I just didn't know
Right.
the word. And BDB has it as feed, pay you dalit, or peed. It's ufeed or peed when it's on its own. But this idea of who, to know your place in society, not just to fear God, but to fear the authority, the local authority, and don't hang out with the rebels. Um, the word here, shonim, which are different, the others, maybe the ones who are intentional others, maybe that's a way to understand it. And an interesting thing happens here, which has,
Mhm.
I'm always trying to, pull along, take advantage of opportunities we have. As far as the text is concerned, the LXX, which is the Septuagint, the Greek translation, has a far longer text on this for what would be these verses here. Malka, if you would read the last section, please. And everybody in your mind, look at the upper section. Is this a paraphrase? Does this reflect an earlier version, a different version? Anyway, go ahead.
Fear God, O son, and the king, and be not disobedient to either of them. For suddenly they, that is God and king, will punish the world, and who knows the punishments that will befall either. A son who keeps a word is free from destruction, and receiving it, he has received it. Let no falsehood from the tongue be said to a king, nor any falsehood proceed from his tongue. For the tongue of a king is a sword, and not flesh, and whoever is delivered to it will be shattered. For if for if his anger is provoked, he consumes men with sinews, and the bones of men he gnaws up. Let a flame he like a flame he burns them up, so that they are indelible, even by young eagles.
So I don't know that I want to delve into each of the meanings of the Greek text because I would have to look at the Greek and take that. My only point here is to show that often we have, especially in books that are not like the Torah, which was so central, different versions. I've mentioned before Jeremiah's the LXX, the Septuagint's version of Jeremiah is much shorter than the Masoretic text, what we call the MT, the the received Hebrew version, the one that we all work with for the last thousands of years, 1,000 years. Okay. Any further comments? I apologize that we started late, therefore we're ending a little bit late. We'll
Does
take
that last thing we read really justify the sort of divine right of kings and that kings are basically have to be deferred to like God?
Yeah, yeah. In it, when you look at Samuel and Kings, the two or the Chronicles, that is the idea. Kings certainly do evil in the eyes of God, and they misfit, but they do have the power. They've been anointed by a prophet who is the messenger of God, and Mashiach, as you know, Messiah Mashiach is the anointed one. That's where the power comes from. Um, and so, yeah, I think so. The question, of course, is what happens when it's an evil king? Are you allowed to disobey an evil king? Um, yeah. But yes, divine right. Yeah. Okay, everybody. We'll see you in 3 weeks from now. Um, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you, Madalena.
You're welcome.